Title: The Laboratory Madness. Main story: Anton and Igor Malik were two esteemed scientists working at the High Virus Laboratory in Washington, USA. They had been working together for over a decade, researching and testing some of the most deadly viruses known to man. They had always been careful, taking all necessary precautions to ensure their safety and that of the public. One fateful day, they were working on a virus that was more dangerous than any they had worked on before. It was highly contagious and deadly, capable of causing severe hallucinations and turning people into demons. Anton and Igor were determined to find a way to control the virus and prevent it from spreading. As they were conducting their experiments, something went terribly wrong. The virus breached the containment system, and before they knew it, it had escaped from the lab and into the world. Anton and Igor immediately sounded the alarm and started the evacuation process, but it was too late. The virus had already spread too far, and there was no stopping it. As they made their way out of the lab, they could see the chaos unfolding around them. People were running in panic, screaming and crying. The virus had taken hold of them, and they had become demonic creatures, attacking anyone in their path. Anton and Igor ran as fast as they could, trying to avoid the infected. They knew they had to find a way to stop the virus before it was too late. They headed to a nearby research center, hoping to find a cure. As they arrived at the research center, they were horrified to find that it had been overrun by the infected. The building was a maze of corridors and rooms, with the infected lurking around every corner. Anton and Igor cautiously made their way through the building, searching for any clues or research that could help them find a cure. They were on high alert, constantly on the lookout for any signs of danger. As they turned a corner, they came face to face with a group of infected. The creatures snarled and growled, ready to attack. Anton and Igor fought back with all their might, using whatever weapons they could find to defend themselves. After a long and grueling battle, Anton and Igor emerged victorious. They had defeated the infected, but they knew there were more out there, waiting to attack. As they continued their search, they discovered a hidden lab deep within the research center. Inside, they found research notes and experimental data that could lead to a cure for the virus. They worked tirelessly, analyzing the data and conducting experiments. Finally, after many long hours, they found a cure. It was a risky procedure, but they knew they had no other choice. They injected themselves with the cure, hoping that it would work. They could feel the virus inside them, trying to take hold. But slowly, they started to feel normal again. With the cure in hand, Anton and Igor set out to find a way to distribute it to the infected. It wasn't an easy task, but they were determined to save as many people as they could. They fought their way through the infected hordes, injecting as many people as they could with the cure. It was a dangerous mission, but they knew it was their only hope. As they walked through the deserted streets of Washington, they could still feel the lingering effects of the virus. The memories of the demonic hallucinations and the infected attacking them haunted them, but they knew they had to keep moving forward. Suddenly, they heard a noise behind them. They turned around to see a group of infected running towards them, their eyes glowing with a demonic red light. Anton and Igor knew they had to fight for their lives once again. They pulled out their weapons and prepared for battle. The infected lunged at them, but Anton and Igor were ready. They fought with all their might, using every skill they had learned over the years to defeat the infected. As they walked away from the scene of the battle, they knew that they had to be careful. The virus may have been contained, but there were still those out there who were infected and dangerous. Anton and Igor made a vow to continue their work, to research and develop new ways to prevent and cure deadly viruses. They knew that the world was counting on them, and they were determined to live up to the challenge. The sun was setting as they made their way back to their homes. The city was silent, the only sound the echoing footsteps of Anton and Igor as they walked towards the future. They knew that the world would never be the same again, but they were ready to face whatever came next. As they disappeared into the darkness, they knew that their adventure was far from over. They had faced death and destruction, but they had emerged stronger for it. And they knew that they would always be ready for whatever horrors the future might hold. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Anton and Igor continued their work at the high-virus laboratory, determined to prevent a similar outbreak from happening again. But despite their best efforts, there was something different about them. They had seen things that no human should ever see, and they had experienced horrors beyond comprehension. As time went on, they began to experience strange dreams and hallucinations. They saw the same demonic creatures that they had fought in Washington, and they could feel the virus coursing through their veins. At first, they dismissed it as stress and exhaustion from their work. But as the hallucinations continued and their behavior became more erratic, they knew that something was wrong. One night, Anton and Igor were awakened by a loud noise coming from the laboratory. They rushed over to investigate, and what they found was horrifying. The virus that they had been working on had mutated, and it had infected everyone in the laboratory. They were all acting like the infected they had fought in Washington, and they were attacking anyone who came near. Anton and Igor knew that they had to act fast. They had to find a way to contain the virus before it spread any further. As they worked frantically to find a solution, they realized that they were the only ones who could save the world once again. They had to face their worst fears and fight against the virus that threatened to destroy everything. And they were ready to do whatever it took to protect the world from the horrors that lay beyond. As they worked to recover from their ordeal, they began to notice strange occurrences around them. Objects would move on their own, and they would hear eerie whispers in the night. At first, they tried to dismiss it as their imagination, but as the phenomena continued, they knew that something was wrong. One night, Anton woke up to find himself surrounded by a thick fog. He could barely see anything in front of him, but he could hear the sound of footsteps getting closer. He tried to call out to Igor, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of the footsteps. He knew that he was not alone, and that something was coming for him. Suddenly, he felt something grab his arm. He tried to pull away, but the grip was too strong. He looked down to see a pair of demonic eyes staring back at him. He screamed for Igor, and suddenly the fog cleared. He was alone in his room, his arms sore from where he had been grabbed. The next day, Anton and Igor went to the laboratory to investigate what had happened. They found that the virus they had contained had somehow spread again, infecting the entire laboratory. They knew that they had to act fast to stop the virus before it spread any further. They searched for a solution, but nothing seemed to work. As the virus continued to spread, Anton and Igor realized that they were running out of time. They knew that they had to find a way to stop the virus before it destroyed everything. Finally, they found a solution. They realized that the only way to stop the virus was to destroy the laboratory completely, and with it, the virus. They set explosive charges throughout the laboratory and activated them. As the charges exploded, the laboratory collapsed in on itself, taking the virus with it. As they stood outside, watching the laboratory crumble to the ground, they knew that they had done the right thing. They had saved the world once again, but this time, they knew that they had paid a heavy price. As they walked away from the ruins of the laboratory, they knew that they would never be the same again. The virus had left a mark on them, and they knew that they would always carry its influence with them. But they were also stronger for it. They had faced the worst of horrors and emerged victorious, and they knew that they would always be ready to fight against the forces of darkness, no matter what the cost. As they walked back to their homes, Anton and Igor both felt a sense of relief wash over them. They were grateful to be alive, but they also knew that they would never forget the horrors they had faced. However, their relief was short-lived. As they arrived at their homes, they found that something was wrong. The streets were deserted, and there was an eerie silence that filled the air. They both knew that something was not right, and they drew their weapons as they cautiously made their way through the empty streets. Suddenly, Anton heard a noise behind him. He turned around to see a group of infected people, their eyes glowing with a demonic light. Anton and Igor knew that they had to fight for their lives, and they stood back to back as they faced the horde of infected people.